I'm Iain Dale. I present the evening show on LBC Radio, and I was here, oh my goodness, when was it? 6th of September to have my gallbladder out. I think it's about the end of July, 27th of July. It's a Saturday evening. I'd been round to the neighbours at my house in Norfolk and just had drinks and canapes, went home, started to feel ill. I was sick. And then I had this sort of pain down my right hand side. It wasn't sort of like, it was horrible, but not like acute. And I just thought I got food poisoning. But I couldn't sleep because I couldn't find a position to sleep in. And I just assumed it would all go away the next day. But it didn't, or the next. And so on the Monday evening I went to A&E. They immediately said it's gallbladder. And it turned out that it was perforated, which meant that it was leaking bile into my stomach. And I don't know whether this is the case, but I think that must have been going on for quite some time, because throughout the previous year I must admit I'd felt quite run down. They said they would take it out the next day, but it turned out to be far too infected and inflamed, and so they couldn't do that. And they said you have to wait 6 weeks. And then they said, well, we say 6 weeks, but it's actually more like 18 because of the waiting list. I was in hospital for 6 days in Tunbridge Wells, and I have to say the treatment there was fantastic. And I would have quite happily had the operation on the NHS, but I couldn't wait 18 weeks because of my job. So I've got Bupa. So I thought, well, and I also wanted to have the same consultant that treated me in Tunbridge Wells. So I did a bit of private detective work and worked out where he operated from, and Benenden was the hospital. I just rang up and I said, look, I'd like to have it done with this particular consultant. And it was all really, really smooth. Well, I came in to see Mr. Hassan, who treated me in Tunbridge Wells, and we were quite clear I did need to have the operation. And then he suddenly said, but it won't be me that's carrying it out. And I thought, oh, well, that's a bit odd. But then he said, no, Mr. Hamouda will do it because it's at his area of expertise. I think I had the pre-op assessment on the 22nd of August, so sort of 3 weeks before the actual operation, and got a lot of good advice on what I should be eating, or more importantly, what I shouldn't be eating. And yeah, again, it was all very smooth. Everything was easy to understand. Mr. Hassan explained it all very easily, and I just wanted to get it over with. I think one of the things that strikes you about Benenden Hospital is it almost looks like a new hospital. I don't know when every bit was built, but you walk in and it could be just a pristine new hospital. The cleanliness is outstanding. Everything here seems quite serene. Everybody I've dealt with here has been kind, polite, nice. I've had quite a few medical issues over the past couple of years. I fell off a theatre stage into an orchestra pit, a 12-foot drop, so terrible problems with my knees. I then fractured my hip. I fell over at the top of a tube escalator. So I've had quite a few experiences over the last couple of years of either operations or just being in hospital. I wasn't anxious about feeling anything or even being aware of what was going on, because I knew that I was going to have a general anaesthetic. And okay, there are risks to that, and they're all explained to you very fully. Before the operation, the anaesthetist comes round along with the consultant or the surgeon, and they tell you exactly what's going to happen, how long it might take, and all you ever remember is being wheeled down to the operating theatre. You see the anaesthetist, and that's it. And the next thing you know, you're back in your room, and eventually you wake up. That process was quite interesting in that the anaesthetist came to see me after I'd been awake for about an hour, and he told me that the operation nearly had to be cancelled because it turned out to be a lot more complicated. The infection was much worse than they thought. And I think at one stage, Mr. Hamouda did think about stopping, and because it was all keyhole surgery, But it was so infected that he wasn't sure that he would be able to do it. And then they'd had to stop, and presumably on another day I'd have had to come back and then had to open me up. Well, he persevered, and the bit of the operation that should have taken about 40 minutes took 2.5 hours. So you can tell how serious it was. Of course, I was totally unaware of any of this at the time. And I thought it was good of the anaesthetist to tell me that, just so I realised sort of how difficult it had been. I had no pain at all. There was discomfort around the sort of tummy area, because if you take the gallbladder out, all the other bits around there, they've got to find their place again, so that they sort of wobble around. I mean, you can't feel them wobbling around, but that's presumably what they're doing, just trying to settle down. So the operation was on the Friday, but by the Tuesday, all of that discomfort had gone. I only twice, I think, used painkillers, but it wasn't even really pain, it was just discomfort. You can only have soft food, so for 4 days I was on soup and jelly. I was like living like a 3-year-old again. Quite enjoyed it, actually. Forgot how much I like jelly. And then gradually you sort of go into scrambled eggs, sort of, but not really solid food, and you lose a hell of a lot of weight. I mean, the whole process, but from the end of July, because I was told I shouldn't eat dairy food at all, and I really religiously stuck to that. I lost 1.5 stone in those 6 weeks. 10 days after the operation, I went back to work, and I went on air at 7 p.m. And within 5 minutes, I just thought to myself, oh my God, you feel like a different person, which people on social media had told me I would, but I didn't really believe them. I was sharp, I was on it, I was just on total top form, and it was a feeling that I hadn't had, shall we say, for probably up to a year. A couple of weeks after that, I then started to go back to the gym again, made sure I didn't sort of do too much that would involve moving sort of this area. And we're what now, sort of 22nd of October, and I feel completely normal again. The surgery's been quite transformational in many ways, because I now realise that for the previous year I'd felt a bit down. I hadn't realised it at the time, but since the surgery I just feel completely transformed, revived, almost, sort of rejuvenated. I think that's the word I would probably use to describe it. And it can only be because of the surgery. Nothing else in my life has changed. So I'm just so grateful that it turned out okay. I can't fault any aspect of the treatment that I've had, or the dealings that I've had with people here, from the admin staff, the people that book appointments, incredibly helpful. Again, it doesn't seem as if it's just a job to them. They seem to be really just committed to providing a top-class service.